Let's create a day and night cycle. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a day and night cycle based on a timer variable that ticks through as the hours tick by in your game, and then the sun will come up in the morning, the moon will come out at night, and then the darkness and lightness will change gradually over time to mimic the setting sun and shining moon. Okay, first thing we need to do is get an overlay on top of our layer, which we're going to use to fade the light and dark effects. So right click, add a layer to the top. I'm going to call this fade, double click, and I'm just going to use a tile background. I'm going to make it a nice deep blue, and I want to fade over the entire level, and I'm going to set the starting opacity to 60. Now, when I fade the lightness and darkness, I don't want the player to be faded with it, although technically, in reality, everything will get lighter and darker. I want the player just to kind of pop on top, so I'm going to create another layer on top of everything for the player. If I lock the fade layer, I can now touch the player, change him to the player layer, and he's going to sit on top of the fade. Okay, on the fade, I'll lock the player now. On the fade, I'm going to add a behavior, and I'm going to give it the tween behavior. In the event sheet, I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call this sunset. I'm also going to create a second. I'm not going to add a script. I'm going to create a second function, and I'm going to call this sunrise. And I'm going to call these functions at certain times when the sun's setting and when the sun is rising. So for sunset, I'm going to add an action, and we're going to use the tile background, and we're going to play around with the opacity, but we're not going to click opacity. We're going to set the tween one property, and we're going to tween the opacity. The end value is going to be 60%. And I want that to happen over 5 seconds, which is fine. You can change it on how quickly you want the sun to set. You would just change it in there. But let's leave it with 5 and see what happens. On the sunrise, we're going to do the exact same thing, except the end value is going to be 0. And that's all we're going to do for now. Next thing we need to do is add a timer. So add event, system, go back, cancel. So the next thing we're going to do is add a global variable to track the time. So right click, add global variable, and we're going to call this time, and it's going to be a number. Oh, time already pre-exists in the game, so we're going to call this daytime. So the daytime is basically the time on the clock. We could have called it clock, it doesn't matter. Add an event, system. Scroll to the bottom, every X seconds. So this is where you set the time for the game. So if you want your game to be basically 1 second equals 1 minute of real time, you might want to have it as 1 minute equals 1 minute, in which case say every 60 seconds. But I'm going to have my time represent 1 second of the day equals 1 minute in reality, and my day is going to be about 10 minutes long. So I'm going to say every second, we're going to go system, and we're going to add to that global variable 1. So every second that goes by, the clock ticks 1. So 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, or whatever, minutes, whatever it might be. But that's just tracking the time. And again, for your own game, you can put whatever you want in there based on how long you want the day to last. So my day is going to be maybe 10 minutes, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds or whatever. Anyway, yeah, I'm waffling. Let's continue. Let's just uncheck the fade layer for now. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to add a text. I'll put it on the fade layer. I'm going to add text to track the hours of the clock. I'm going to put that on layer 0. I'm going to start it at 0 hours. and I'm just going to pop that, let's pop it right inside the construct. I'm going to make it impact, and I'm going to set the alignment to the center. There we go. There's our time. So now in the event sheet, I need to go into system, every tick, and we need to set that text to display the global variable daytime. Because every second we're adding one to daytime, we need to show that now in there. So if we run the game, that is now ticking on. So 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever the case may be, 5, 6, you get the idea, and it's a nice kind of twilight nighttime. Now we need to decide what time the sun is going to set, and that reminds me, I'm going to set the default opacity to 0 on the fade because it's going to start daytime. So at what time do we want the sun to start setting? So I'm going to say after 10 seconds. Yours can be after 10 minutes, whatever it might be, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to add an event, and we're going to do a system check. We're going to compare the variable. So if the daytime hours are equal to 10, so if 10 hours or 10 minutes or 10 seconds, or if this time of day happens, then we're going to trigger the function sunset. So we're going to go in, call the function sunset. And remember, that's going to take 5 seconds. So when we get to 15 seconds, it's going to be nighttime. So we're going to count on another 10 seconds from 15, and that's when we want to set the sunrise. So we're going to just copy this, copy that chunk of code there. So allow for the 10 to be 15, so that's going to be on 25 seconds. We're going to call sunrise, and that's going to take a further 5 seconds. So that's going to take us up to 30. So then all we do is we go in and we say system, compare variable. If the daytime is equal to 30, system set value of daytime back to 0. So it's going to just roll over and over and over again. Let's check it out. Okay, it's starting to get nighttime. And now it's going back to morning. And then it'll just roll around again, over and over again. And you can make your night last as long as you want, or your day last as long as you want, and your night and day cycle will just continue infinitely throughout your game. So what I've added in, and I recorded the whole thing and then realized my screen capture wasn't recording, so I'm going to talk you through it. I've added in a global string variable called time of day. I've set the initial value to day. I've added this block of code and this block of code at the bottom here. So basically a system check to see if the time of day is set to day, then we're going to trigger once all of this, and if time of day is set to night, then we're going to trigger once all of this. So effectively what I've done is I've created if I lock the fade layer, where is it? Where is it? It's on the fade layer. Okay. So what I've done is I've created a sprite here. I've just created a simple sprite that I've drawn with 2 frames. Frame 0 is the moon, frame 1 is the sun. Don't judge me, it's not a pixel art tutorial. On the animation properties, I've set the speed to 0 so it doesn't play, so it defaults to the moon, and I've just set the starting opacity to be 0. Then on the event sheet, I've triggered once as soon as we get to sunset up here. So on the sunset function, I've added in system set the time of day to night, that's on the function, and then on the sunrise function I've said set time of day to day, and then when these happen in the global variable up here, we're triggering once the code down here. So I've added a tween behavior to the sprite here under the behaviors, and I've said immediately when it gets to day we're going to set the animation frame. So remember, frame 1 is the sun, frame 0 is the moon. So when it's day we set the frame to 1, and then I'm going to tween the sun moon sprite in 3 seconds. I'm going to tween its opacity to full opacity, so from nothing, so from 0 to invisible to 100 over 3 seconds. And then at the same time I'm also tweening the Y property, so the Y-axis, the up and down, and the end value of that tween is whatever it's currently at minus 32 pixels, which is the height of the sprite, so it's going to move up into the sky. Then I'm going to wait 7 seconds, because if you remember my day cycle is 10 seconds long, it's going to take 3 seconds to rise. Wait another 10 seconds, then it's going to start to move into the sunset. So then what we do then is for 3 seconds is I'm going to tween the opacity back to 0, and I'm going to tween the Y back down, so whatever its current self position is plus another 32, which will put it back into its original position as it will set effectively. Then when we hit night, I've just done the exact same thing, but I've changed the animation frame to 0, so it will rise and fall with the moon. And then if we hit play, this is what this looks like. Sun rises in the sky in the morning. Sun sets, and as the moon comes up, it starts to turn dark. And that's effectively how you do a day-night cycle. If you found the tutorial helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really helps the channel. If you have any suggestions for future easy game mechanic tutorials, leave them in the comments below.